Not interested.
Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Holy crap, E3 started a little bit earlier than I was expecting with the Google Stadia Connect presentation talking about their new video game streaming platform, which we've been hearing a little bit about, but this was kind of like their first, I think, big push to present the idea to gamers, to an audience of gamers. They had a mix, it really felt like an E3 type presentation because there was a mix of talk about the tech, but then a bunch of games that they were featuring too, really trying to make the point that this is about games. So let me first run down the games that stuck out to me and my reactions to them. First, they had a big reveal of the rumored Baldur's Gate 3, which is going to be coming to Google Stadia, and of course none of these games are coming exclusively to Google Stadia that I'm aware of, but the trailer was just a CG, minimalistic teaser trailer, but I was really liking what I was seeing. It had this super dark body horror vibe, with the gritty D&D fantasy setting, which I'm like totally down for, and I really did enjoy Baldur's Gate 1 especially, and a lot of Baldur's Gate 2. Ultimately, I kind of had to cheat because I didn't want to. I hate all the status effects. When battles become all about crazy status effects that freeze your guys and take them out of the fight, I'm like, that's no fun. I want to play with my toys, So I don't like really heavily status effects based combat in those types of games. But I love that real time with pause classic gameplay of the Baldur's Gate games, Icewind Dale games, Neverwinter Nights, and more recently Pillars of Eternity. And so seeing that this franchise coming back is really exciting to me. I hope that it kind of goes in a Dragon Age direction where it is, going to be maybe a little bit more like, not top down quite as much, maybe a little bit more of in a 3D environment, but still with that real time with pause combat, controlling a party. There's just so much. We haven't seen any gameplay. Hopefully we'll see a ton more as E3 continues next week. I don't even know at this point if it's real time with pause. It's being developed by Larian Studios, who created the Divinity something crap. I can't remember what it's called. Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. And those are not real-time with pause. Those are turn-based. I can't imagine they would be using that system. I have to imagine that it's going to be a very different style of game from those. Maybe it'll still have the top-down kind of vibe, but I hope it'll be real-time with pause. Anyway, so moving along, there was also a game called Guilt. The teaser just gave very little. It's kind of like a spooky, kind of a childish nightmare kind of game, but really the name is what stuck out to me. I went to the site to check it out at Guilt, G-Y-L-T, thegame.com, and the description reads, "Shape your fears, fear the shapes. Enter the new creation from Tequila Works, a journey where you face your worst fears and are confronted with the emotional impact of your actions. Set in a creepy and melancholic world, Guilt is an eerie story mixing fantasy and reality in a surrealistic place where your nightmares become reality. Hide from terrible creatures or confront them as you find your way through the challenges of this wicked world." And I think the main thing that stuck out to me was the word guilt. And, we have to figure out what we're going to do with our guilt. Obviously, I think that the world and the different philosophies that are running around the world, there's, ideas of forgiving yourself or earning forgiveness and stuff like that. And obviously, as Christians, we rely on Christ for that. But I mean, that does give me pause because I'm like, do I really always rely on Christ to deal with my guilt? Or am I kind of, unwilling to admit fault sometimes when I should because I really am not resting on that promise of grace and forgiveness? So anyway, I'll be very curious to hear more about that game and its themes and how those themes play out in the gameplay. So hopefully we'll see more about Guilt soon. We also saw a little bit of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and I'm already, I'm looking forward to Ubisoft to hear more about this, so I won't comment much on it now. But as it relates to Stadia, at the very end of the kind of like footage they showed on Ghost Recon Breakpoint, they showed, it was almost, you could almost blink and miss it, but it showed 3 picture-in-picture boxes of what looked like other players' screens that were part of your team as you play the game, and what they were seeing on their screens, because below that it said Stream Connect Stadia features. And I was like, huh, I'll bet I haven't seen that picture-in-picture thing with any other footage I've seen featuring Breakpoint up to this point. So I'm wondering if that's like a feature they were subtly representing there, is that when you are playing on Stadia, you can have picture-in-picture of what your teammates are seeing on their screens. And that's really interesting. Even as someone who is not at all interested in playing with other people, that's a really, really cool feature, I think. Then they showed a bunch of other games like Get Packed, The Division 2, there was like a Rage 2, Tomb Raider, something or other, and a bunch more that they scrolled past so quickly I couldn't tell you what they all were. But anyway, let's get to Stadia and what this beast seems to be based on this video. It's going to be a way to play video games without a console or without a high-end PC, completely through streaming. Basically, it's kind of like you get onto your computer or your, whatever screen you're using, which I'll get to the options in a second, and you use their controller or a compatible controller that you already own, and you are just sending input signals for what you want your character and whatever game you're playing to do, and those get sent out to their servers, their computers, way off in the distance somewhere in internet land, and they are running the game for you entirely. So you're just sending your input commands, and they are sending you back the signal of what happens on the screen and the sound and stuff like that. So all the processing power is on their end, and provided that you have a good internet connection, you should be able to have this great high fidelity experience without having to invest in a big console or keeping up with a bunch of PC components. Right now, the screens that Stadia is like at launch, I should say, is going to be able to play on, they say, are any TV, any HD TV with a Chromecast Ultra, and that will run you $70 right now on Amazon. Also, laptops, desktops, tablets, or a Pixel 3 phone. Now, the vision, they've said, is to have Stadia operate on any screen that runs Google Chrome, the browser. And they have plans to expand to more smartphones in the future. And they really kept reiterating that. Every time they would show a game, they would come out of it and feature all the different screens that you could, play on. The Stadia controller connects directly to the game in the Google data center. And the person describing the controller and how it works and its purpose said, and I quote, "That direct connection is key to providing the highest possible performance and the best streaming experience." And I don't think that should be glossed over. I'm wondering if, I think there's going to be every opportunity between the service that Google provides and your own internet service provider. There's going to be all kinds of opportunities for something to go wrong, for there to be a lag of some kind, or a break in the signal or whatever. And so I'm wondering, if this is not just like a, hey, it's more than great. I'm wondering if for some people they're going to find that, dang, that having the Stadia controller makes the difference between this being a good experience and a bad experience. I mean, I think that's just going to differ depending on everybody's internet connection, and I'll get to that, later on. But the Stadia controller is $69, so I think that $70 price point is important to factor in as we're considering what the value is of Stadia as a platform. They also said that with Stadia, you can put your money toward the things that really matter. Namely, they say the latest, greatest game experiences that you can play anywhere. So that's really kind of like a selling point, is that you're saving money on the console and you can just put your money toward the games. And I think that's true. That's going to be true for a significant number of gamers, maybe even the majority of people that would consider themselves quote unquote gamers. But we'll get to kind of like the math in a little bit. They also say that Stadia Pro, which is like kind of like their main way that they kind of are selling you to connect to their service. It's $9.99 a month. It's a subscription service, and it gives you regular content that we add to your library for being a Stadia Pro member, and our highest streaming quality: 4K, HDR, 60 frames per second, and 5.1 surround. So I guess you can assume that without without paying that $9.99. There is a free option, and I'll get to that in a second, but those things you might not be able to get. 4K, understandable. HDR, understandable. 60 frames per second, that might bother some people, but I can understand that. And 5.1 surround, so maybe you're just stuck with stereo or something if you don't do the Stadia Pro thing. But that's $10 a month to get that, and then also this nebulous regular content, quote unquote, that they add to your library for being a Stadia Pro member. I think that's really going to be a significant selling point for me to know more details about what that regular content is. So hopefully we'll get more details about that in the near future. There's also something called the Founders Edition, which is not a subscription. It's a one-time purchase that you can make as you're investing in the platform to get started. And that includes a Chromecast Ultra, again, $70 on Amazon, a controller, which is, did I say $70? Yeah, I think it is $70. Yeah, $70 on Amazon. A controller, which is also $70. Let's see, I lost my spot here. Oh my gosh, I was doing so good. Let's see here. A 3-month subscription for you and your friend. That you get you get to be one of the first people to pick a Stadia name, and they kind of made a thing like that was like the best selling point. I'm like, whatever, I guess. And the bragging rights that come with it. All right, I guess for some players, but and then Destiny 2. All of that for $129, which if you've never played Destiny 2, I guess, that's a pretty decent deal for all of those things. But again, that's just going to get you started with their Pro subscription for that first 3 months, and then you have to continue paying $10 a month, unless you want to use what's called Stadia Base, which they say this is just the free option. You can buy and play Stadia games without a subscription. That's certainly probably the level that I would experiment at to start with, but they do say Stadia games, and so that makes me think, okay, so when you buy a quote-unquote Stadia game, you're probably not getting like the PC version for free. It sounds like there is a Stadia version of this game that you are paying for. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I would have preferred it if you could have at least gotten the PC version of the game for free as well, so that if you decide Stadia is not for you, you can at least play it on your PC or something like that. But then again, of course, if you're buying, big hot games on PC, you probably don't need Stadia anyway. So that base version, I'm very curious about what that's going to look like, how it's going to operate. I really had to laugh during the final sizzle reel of their presentation. It featured a bunch of exciting games and exciting music with taglines like the biggest games, the best graphics, no box, no discs, because at that point I ran into a loading circle watching the stream, and then as soon as it caught up and got going again, very soon after that, it introduced heavily pixelated graphics and blurry imagery and stuff, and so it was reminding me again. I just had to smile, laugh, shake my head. Google can do everything right on their end. They can do everything right, but I still am stuck with my own internet connection, my own internet service, whatever that is, whatever I'm willing to pay for, and we are getting close to the top tier of internet service, for my area, and I'm still running into problems frequently enough that I'm like, I don't have any confidence that I could play games, that aren't turn-based and have a good time on some kind of a streaming service. Now, I did do a little bit of math, just assuming that each of my consoles has lasted at least 5 years, with the exception of the Xbox 360. Actually, my consoles have lasted much longer than that, but I kind of think of as the main life cycle of a console as at least 5 years, and I think that's being very conservative. I actually am used to having consoles last and play on them as my main console for 6, 7, years, definitely. But anyway, let's just say 5 years, okay? The cost of having a console for 5 years. Well, the Stadia base experience for 5 years is free. You just pay for the games and that's it. If you already have a controller that's compatible, whatever the quality of that experience is going to be, you get it free. And that's really pretty a good deal. If you get the base, no subscription fee with the controller investment to improve your lag or whatever that might give you, that's a $70 investment. Still much better than a console. But here's the thing. You add in that Pro subscription, which I think is where the value is really going to be, where likely it will maybe, like, I can imagine it being something that is not just like really cool, but something that actually might solve some problems that you're having. I don't know. I don't know. But I pessimistically wonder if really for me to have a good experience, I would have to get the Pro subscription. And for 5 years, that's going to be $600. 5 years, $600, okay? And if I want a controller, their Stadia controller, to get the smoothest experience, that's $670. If you get the Founders Pack, and then also, add in that 5 years following after the free subscription period is over, that's $690 total. So we're looking at least a $600 investment for probably what is going to be a good, solid, next-gen capable experience, The only way this looks like a better deal to me is if Xbox and PlayStation introduce consoles that are like $700 or $800, which I would be flabbergasted if they did that. But the only way this looks like a better deal to me right now is if the quote-unquote regular content that's given to Stadia Pro members is akin to the free games that you get with PlayStation Plus each month, or Xbox Game Pass, or the other service, whatever it is they have. Then I think it could be a great service, a great platform if you're already used to paying for those kinds of monthly subscription services and you stop paying for those. So in other words, if you stop, you say, I'm moving to Stadia and I'm done now with my subscriptions on PlayStation Plus or my subscription on the Xbox or whatever, then this becomes, I think, a better deal because you save money on the box even though you continue paying a monthly subscription. But for me, this has zero appeal. I suspect that the PS4 is probably going to be probably no more than, I would say, $600, I think. I'd be surprised, actually, if they got on stage and said the infamous $599 US again. I think it's very possibly going to be less, and I don't pay for any gaming subscription services. So I think that for some Christians in particular, this could be a much better way, actually, though, to steward their financial resources. We are called to keep a loose grip on our money and our possessions and be generous in our giving. And so being wise and conservative in our entertainment spending can help serve that goal. Luke 12, verses 33 and 34 in the ESV, Jesus says, "Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Now, we shouldn't take those verses as a mandate to sell all our possessions and become poor. He's giving us an idea of how we should view our possessions, how we should use our possessions, the ways we should look to leverage our possessions. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19 gives words of instruction to those who are rich. And it doesn't say to those who are rich, become unwealthy, become poor, give away all you have until you are poor, but it gives instructions on how to handle our wealth. And if you have an internet connection, then compared to a ton of people in the world today, you are wealthy. And so these verses apply to you and me. It says, "As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches." Boy, we can really do that. I can certainly get hyped up more than I should about things that I'm looking forward to buying. So nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. He's the source of all these things that we enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. So I think for some gamers, Google Stadia could be like a way of being responsible with your finances and being more conservative. If you're already, as part of your rhythm of playing games and stuff, you find that the monthly subscription fees are a good value for what you like to get out of games, then moving to Google Stadia, if you have the right kind of internet connection, could be a really God-honoring purchase. So it's really, I see two kind of like I don't want to say extremes. There's all kinds of room in the middle, I'm sure, but I see it as either like a big, risky potential waste of money for some, which I think is probably what it would be for me. I really want to test this thing. I hope they will put some games out there that you can demo for free on your own internet connection and see what their pro service is like on your own internet connection, playing a hot new action twitchy type game. I would really love that, opportunity to do that, maybe sometime down the road. But until then, I see this as a big, risky potential waste of money for some, and on the other end, a potentially fun and God-honoring purchase for others. So I would love to hear where you think it would fall in your case. Stay tuned for more reactions from E3 from me throughout this weekend and next week. Oh, and don't forget to check out Spirit Blade Legacy Edition, the sci-fi audio drama that we've just made available for free here on youtube.com/ChristianGeekCentral. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. I've created some new tiers for our Patreon. On top of many of our original perks, I've added Discord live events, spoiler chat videos, and more. You can get all the info at patreon.com/SpiritBladeProductions.